Oh, Krista's on the run. Hello, Eleanor. Hello, Susan. Let me see who else we got here. I'm getting some sort of notification about something I can now do on Zoom. So I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to tell me I can do now. Oh, it's been a human condition day, folks.
I'll be parking in 1 minute
It's
and
fine.
then I'll be still until 4:30 and then dropping off from 4:30 to 4:40. So
Okay.
thanks.
We will do what we need to do. I'm a Sagittarian, and Sagittarians are extremely flexible.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How's everybody else today?
I'm tired this
Besides my computer freaking out. Oh, sorry, Eleanor.
No, you're good. I would be freaking out.
So freaking out because,
Oh, no, about her computer. I'm tired. This weather is killing me.
well, weather's killing you, and there's a lot of energetic stuff happening.
Maybe
There's
it's that too.
a lot of energetic stuff. I laughed because there was let me see if I did a screenshot of it. Um, let me see what it said. It was so funny the way that she ended it. Let me see if I can find. So I saw something on Facebook or I don't know, Facebook or I don't know which one it was, but she was listing all of the things that were going on. I don't think I can find it. She was listing all of the things that were going on celestially, and at the end she said, "Yep, the sky is pretty much feral right now." And I just loved how she said that. I'm like, that is actually such a great description of what's going on in the world. Oh, there's Donna. What is going on in the world right now, because it does feel kind of feral-ish,
Mhm.
energetically. We had Mercury in the retrograde. It went out Monday. We had the Sturgeon moon on Saturday. We had the Lion's Gate happening. We have all these different like planetary movements. We've got all kinds of stuff happening right now. So the hot and cold is making a difference too. So absolutely. Yeah. And I know that Mara emailed me saying that there was something that came up and she had to take care of it. So she will not be here. Yetta is away. Carol's away. Sherry had a last minute thing. Her parents were getting in late from the airport or something. She had to go pick them up. It's a 3-hour drive for her. So we may have a smaller group today. Um, and that's fine. Let me make sure I haven't forgotten to let anybody in. So we will play it by ear. Let's go with that. Well, this is something I ask clients a lot. So better, worse, same, or different? Anything better, worse, same, or different? Any of you?
The puppy let me sleep till 7:15 today. That felt major.
That sounds like a plus.
I'll take it.
That sounds like a plus. We need to see said puppy at some point. Yeah, my someone asked me, one of my clients today asked me just the cordiality, well, how are you? And I said, well, I'm having a human condition day. And my one of the battery on one of my cars went out. My handyman, thank God, was here this morning anyway, getting some stuff done, and he charged it, got it down to get a new battery, and it took over twice as long as they said it would take for it to get done. So I had to cancel a meeting. It was one of those things. Then when I got home, my garage door wouldn't open. And then I'm thinking, okay, what is it about this? And then the text I got from my handyman was that, well, your ceiling fan, which he thought he could fix, is officially dead. I'm like, okay, so the motor must be dead. And then also my water heater's going out. So and I was driving home going, ah, and then I thought, you know what, this is just human condition. This is nothing, compared to what's going on in the other parts of the world. So I just laughed. I'm like, yep, gotta just shake off that human condition. So All right. Anybody else have something fun or interesting? Hopefully not a human condition day, but
No, I'm ready to present one when we're ready. I'm excited.
okay. Sounds good. And let's just wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes because the others were supposed to be here. So I know Jen. Let's see here. So let me mark her. Mark her. Susan's here. Krista's here. Ginny, I think it's supposed to be here. And Kim's already here. Kim, I'm sorry, your computer is getting wacky. Um, so, um, so little businessy thing. So I sent an email with the copyright form. That language just like hurts my brain. And I had experimented with a different with switching it to a PDF. And on my side, it looks like you can fill in the information, but Jen had said that she couldn't actually do it from her side. So I may have to, you couldn't either. Okay, so that's good to know. So the attempt I made was I was using Adobe, but basically on my side it looks fine. So for whatever reason, it's not. My graphics person is working on trying to figure out if we can flip the current forms, the assessments into fillable forms. The problem is when you do that, it reformats everything and throws everything off. So it's probably going to take a while for us to get fillable forms, but actually I'm grateful that we had the conversation a couple weeks ago because, it actually makes complete sense to do it that way. But yeah, so it throws the formatting because she did that in a graphics program. So when you try to bring it in as a Word program and turn it into a PDF, it jumbles it. So we're having to figure out if there's a way for her to do her magic. So I'm going to have her. I told her, I talked to her on Sunday, and I'm letting her work on that because she would know how to do the magic more than I would from the program that she used. So we'll see where that goes. Also, the fact that I've had to renoodle the future courses has actually turned into it's been a lot of brain noodling, but I think what's weaving together is going to be good, and I will share more when I get it like all down on paper. So I think there's some good options. So again, I'm a Sagittarian. I'm one of those personalities that goes with the flow and can change things and kind of turn on a dime if I need to. So I'll give you some more information about that. But I think it's going to be a nice solution for lots of reasons. So I'll let you know how that goes. Any other business that any of you have that you need to?
I have two things. And I'm sorry I couldn't speak up earlier. My son and his girlfriend were getting ready to go for a run, and that they just didn't need to be part of class. Um, can you put, not to give you something else to do, and I don't know why this has just come up. Can the Zoom link be added somewhere in the modules? Maybe it's just me, but I keep having to find an email that has the Zoom link to go. It's just from moving forward, not necessarily for us, but moving forward, can the Zoom link be part of like your about Dr. Kelly or somewhere in there where you can just go on to the website and that Zoom links are always in the same spot? It'll be easier to find.
So I can try to see where I can put that. You can also save them. Now, I don't use an electronic calendar because I have
I
to
don't.
see. Okay, so that's part of it. People can save those in their electronic calendars, and then it's not an issue. But I will, a lot of times when I write those emails, I forget to put it in there because I just assume it's an ongoing link. But I will
Yeah,
make
I
a note.
should know. And it was just if it had a permanent home on the website when we're going to check the modules anyway.
Sure.
Because we're referencing that all the time. I just didn't know if that might be
Yeah.
I don't know. I
No, I
just
think it's a
sort
good
of
idea.
thinking
Good idea. Anything to make life easier. So I appreciate that.
moving forward. So anyway, and I do have good news. My son has a real estate job, and but I couldn't say that in front of him. And so he's he's moving. He's moving on Thursday with a job in place. So that's super exciting. So anyway, but
And
with
congratulations.
him milling around the house, I'm not going to be talking about him because he would not love that. But that's that's our focal point this week. So it's very good, very exciting. Anyway, hey everybody.
Very fun. Cool. Congratulations to both of you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. This launch might stick this time.
I was going to say, launching kids can be tricky because they can
Well,
like
I mean,
ricochet and come back.
he did.
Yes.
This will be second launch. So we're hoping we're hoping this one sticks. He seems very excited, very ready. So anyway, here we go.
I think I might have just gotten a text because I think Krista's having a hard time rejoining. Yes. Okay, yeah, she was saying she's in the lobby, but I already approved her coming in. So, okay, cool. Anybody else have anything businessy? Oh, now we have two Kristas trying to come in. So I think she is having connection problems. So, okay,
I just
so,
want to tap out for the day.
That's got to be
Can we
frustrating
just
since
call
she
the day
starts.
over?
oh,
She is.
she's back. So Krista, there are two of you that are trying to get in. I mean, you're already in on one, but there's another that says you're joining still. So just the reason I'm saying that is that it might mess with your bandwidth. So if I don't know if I can find, yeah, I can't eject you from this side. Because sometimes I can, but I can't this time. So. Okay, any thoughts or questions about the video? It was, again, I'm just trying to do very short videos because I know you've got a lot going on with doing these practice clients, but anything from the video, kind of that whole looking at the energetic blockages, anything like that that you want to touch base on? Okay, so the people who wanted to present today, so Mara was going to present, but she, again, whatever personal thing that came up, Jenny was going to present, Yetta was going to present, and she said she didn't know if she would have um, internet where she's at because she's still in Canada. So
Krista's ready. I'm ready.
yeah, so what I would like to do is let's do for the people who said that you were able to do one or two, let's go through one person each and then go back because I want to give everybody kind of a chance. So who wants to present someone first? And then I'll kind of keep track of it along the way.
I was only able to get one. Yeah, it didn't get any farther than that.
Well, and as long as we can, cram, we should be able to get them done in the next several. We'll just have to from next week on, we're really going to have to kind of cook at this. So Krista, did you want to go ahead and jump in? You said you were kind of excited to.
Yeah, so let me wait until 4:45. I'm concerned if I start now, my child will be in the car
Okay.
and I don't want that. And so
Okay.
I can listen and then I can maybe go next. I'll be dropping her off at 4:45 and I'll be back alone again. And I'm
Okay.
just concerned that 15 minutes now won't be enough.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Well, we're going to keep these at like 10:15, so we should be good. So
Okay, well, I can go then. I can go then. No problem.
It's up to you. If you want to wait, we can wait.
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll go on.
Okay.
And so, the person's name is Kimberly, and she's 52. And she and I met through a Christian church about 9 years ago. And she's honestly the only person from that church experience that I still have any contact with. She's definitely describes herself as a loving Christian, open-minded, and I've always experienced her to be those things. We went to this church for about 3 or 4 years because I wanted my daughter to have activities at that age. She is a work at home parent, which is something we addressed in her session. She kept calling herself a stay at home parent, and I'll explain why that's a big shift for her. She's been married 18 years to a narcissist. She has a master's degree in speech therapy, and she's not worked in her profession for 15 years. She has a 15-year-old non-binary child. Um, and she volunteers a lot at church and the community. She's very active with her physical health because she knows how that impacts. She does take medication for depression. She's in therapy. She's tried marital therapy until he quit going. Um, since COVID, her husband, who is a pretty high level, was a pretty high level banking executive, he's been working from home, which has been very stressful for her. And then recently, within the last month, he was laid off. And so he has decided to retire, um, which has really spiraled her even more, so to speak. As life has continued to evolve, it it's like a picture of walls that just kind of keep coming in for her. Um,
Yeah, I'm
she's
imagining
very,
her tree is getting shaken. Yeah.
yes. And she had actually, because I had said, gosh, I wonder what these results would have looked like prior to this layoff for him.
Mhm.
And so if you all can imagine, they're a very financially comfortable family, um, big, beautiful, nice, expensive brick house in Louisville, North Carolina, etc. She's been very eager to do this because she's heard about the soul health model. Again, she and I talk about anything and everything. She's heard of Dr. Kelly for years because of my own journey. Um, and she does seek out, church book studies. She attends spiritual retreats. She's always looking for self-love. And it seems as though no matter how much she pursues, it does not counterbalance the stress from her marriage. She's always been eager to evolve in terms of, again, seeking things. And it seems as though she's been spending, and understandably so, several years in therapy. She can connect that her relationship with her husband mirrors the relationship she had with her mother. Um, so she was excited and nervous. I gave her the middle survey first, and she was already self-reflective over her answers for those things. Um, and then prior to our session, I gave her the longer surveys because I knew that she is self-reflective, and told her to pick one that she wanted us to, if it unfolded, examine together. Her three branches were sexual, environmental, and recreational, which was not surprising to her at all. And she wanted to focus on recreational, which I understood why that would be so important to her, given the stress that she lives with. Um, I was proud of myself for following my intuition with sending her the longer survey. Um, for her to be able to, I love the longer survey and how it gives you focal areas and categories. I think for folks that are visual and reflectors, I think that can be really helpful. Um, she expressed honesty that she was nervous at looking at these painful areas of her life, but was also excited. Um, she understands the importance of recreation, but feels like she really doesn't fit in when she tries to engage herself in recreational kinds of activities. Um, so I saw this as a point to kind of pivot and go deeper. And so twice during the session, I used some of the breathing relaxation techniques that we have practiced. And when we talked about recreation, she kept talking about the stress of her home life and marriage. And so it began, began to continue to be very clear that she is in pre-contemplation separation, and was before her husband was laid off and has decided to retire. And now I think that she really feels squeezed, but is not yet ready to take steps towards that. And so I had her close her eyes and we went through the relaxation, and I was guided to offer some things for her to consider and for her to then tell me like where she felt most joy from the inside of her body, her soul. And it became obvious that she really desperately needs and wants to have some safe space in her home. Again, it's three of them and their home is huge. And so of course I'm thinking like that should be an easy thing, but not, right? Because of the conditions that she's living in.
Right.
And so she kept saying that she's a stay-at-home mom, blah, 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 blah. But I was able to mirror back for her, not stay-at-home mom. And I'm summarizing here. Really, you're a work-at-home mom. 24/7 is she on, even if it's trying to contemplate and how to think through simple tasks with her husband who has narcissistic characteristics. And so she began to cry when we kind of compared and contrasted the difference between stay at home mom, which implies one thing, and work at home mom that implies something completely different.
Yeah.
So she was able to piece together in a new way that she's always on 24/7, never a break, never anything. Even when she's out of the home in the community trying to do something, kind of like a child, he's constantly, contacting her, needing, wanting, whatever kinds of things. And so we then began to examine the possibility that if she works 24/7 in her home, then where is her break room, so to speak? Where is a safe space within her home? And so we did a little bit of some visualization of what that would look like. And she had already kind of been feeling a nudge towards a particular room in her home that's not really serving a purpose. And so she began to visualize that space being just for her and her recreation.
Nice.
We even visualized everything down to there's a lock on this door and she's the only person with the key.
Nice.
We discussed boundaries about what time of day she's in this room and to set boundaries with her family. And she also, again, I reinforced to her taking all of these ideas to her therapist because she is in therapy. So I reiterated that multiple times in the session.
Great.
And so I'm just kind of reading through. She cried a lot and really began to visualize making that room of recreation things that she enjoys. She loves to paint. She loves jewelry. She loves reading. And she said that's another thing. Her one, reading space. Hold on just one second. Do you remember I'm in my meetings? Okay. Can you? All right. And so I'm gonna have to finish this for 5 minutes and then, okay. And so she's in her reading space and of course the spouse has taken over that space as well because of this retirement. Let's see here. What else? I also use scaling a few times through the session to scale her capacity for this plan that she had come up with, as well as readiness and her confidence, because I wanted us to also be able to tune in to how she was feeling around all of those things. And so capacity, she gave a 7, readiness an 8, confidence a 6. And so we then had some conversation about what would help her boost, especially her confidence, because I think, again, she's been wanting to address these things for years and has not known how to do so. I felt like I did a good job of integrating course content using the deep breathing twice. I followed my intuition with some things that I haven't done with anybody else with some of these sessions with the visualization, using the surveys, in 2 different levels. And I also sent her a link for Dr. Kelly's book if she would like to examine these things further on her own. She's a reader, so that made a lot of sense.
Right. Well, and some of the notes that I wrote down, one of the things is this, she was focusing on recreation, but really it was environmental as well, creating a space for herself. It was spiritual because the sacredness of that space for just her, the psychological, some emotional distance and safety. So I think that's wonderful. And also the intellectual, meaning, man, if she can sit and read in that room, then, and this is where, again, this is the beauty of using that model as an interactive thing. And it seems like you not only assessed things well, but you guided her well. So that's really nice. And it sounds like she was able to, I mean, it sounds like it was impactful for her, which is really great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Good practice. Good job. Great summary. I already read the summary. I don't know if you got my email, but yeah, fantastic. And see, this is how you this is how this stuff works is you planted seeds for her that she may not have had the permission to plant for herself. So this is great. Good job. Wonderful. And I know you'll be transporting, so you can listen and then we'll get back to you. Perfect. Okay. Wonderful. Good job. Good job. All right. Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Okay. Let me get my little sheet here. I've got my little. Yes. Okay. So, and are you going to present one of your fellow colleague
Yes,
people or a new
yeah.
person? Okay.
I'm gonna present Donna.
Okay. Wonderful.
I I found it interesting. We popped on and there's my two people and just two other people, and I'm like, oh, well, this feels like intimidating. I don't know why, but it does.
No judgment. No judgment. This is all good practice.
So yes, yes, it is. Um, so Donna is a 65-year-old single white female. She has been doing holistic healing for 11 years and real estate for a lot. Like I think it's been in and out of real estate. Like it comes in handy and then it doesn't. Um, so I just absolutely loved these. Probably because I do this almost every day with my clients, but it's on a different level. Like it feels different. And so interacting with Donna made it feel kind of like I was having therapy with a friend instead of a client, which is, there's that separation. And so it was more intimate, I felt, the interaction. I still called in on my skills in therapy for, pulling questions and the interaction.
Mhm.
Um, she was ready to go. Like I loved, how did she word it? She said something. uh, and I just thought that was so beautiful that, she's, was willing and excited to come forward and do this. Um, again, I love doing it. The major challenge was I didn't allot enough time. I, I was like, an hour session. Perfect. I got those. Yeah, we didn't get very far in an hour. There was just too much. There was too much to explore and learn from each other. And so we only got through like one branch, but that was okay. We did, however, and I don't know how many of you else did this, but she went ahead and filled out all the questionnaires and assessments and sent them to me so I could pre-look at them before our session, which was great because we already didn't have enough time. So,
Mhm.
so I was able to look through it and look through like what she thought would be the places of focus. Right away, financial was on both of ours. Yes, that looks like something we need to look at. And we did spend a whole hour just on that one branch. Um, and probably could have spent another session on the branch.
Mhm.
And what I enjoyed about it is she was willing to like dive deep into like why she has maybe some of these thoughts and feelings about finances and money. Um, and a lot of the things that she wants to like eliminate, I love this again. It wasn't like a physical thing. It wasn't like she was, get rid of my subscriptions or I'm not going to buy dog food anymore. That would never happen. She would not eat before that happened.
She'd just go sell more real estate so she could pay for
Yes,
it. That's what
exactly,
I do.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but she was more wanting to rid herself of like certain mindsets, things that have been planted, a long time ago that are still, what is it, holding rent when they shouldn't be, and she's ready to evict. Um, and so that was just I really enjoyed that depth of where we went instead of just, oh, I'm not gonna go shopping every day.
Mhm.
It was way more. So then the opposite of changing the mindset is getting a new one, like redoing how we think about her finances and not just doing the finances, but the feeling towards money, like her relationship towards finances. Um, and I hope she doesn't care that I share this. But well, first off, her story is amazing. She needs to write a book or two or five, because Donna, you're amazing. You're an amazing individual, and I was just enjoying. I was enjoying this more than I think she was. Um, but where was it going? Oh, the finances came into play because she's contemplating a move. And, you can't just get up and move without looking at your finances, I guess. So, she's weighing these options and, like if I put money there, then it won't be here anymore. Is that a safe place for it to be with these plans? Like, I loved it. She was, checking all the boxes. And then what I loved even more was when we followed up, because I didn't give us enough time the first time, she had said that she already started to have a change of relationship with finances just for us talking about it and speaking it. That I think speaking it helps you rewire where it needs to be.
Mhm.
So that went really well. We did then work on some other branches. Haven't that she wrote down at the end of the assessment. Financial was one, but we ended up doing psychological and physical. But I think there was interpersonal, maybe. I can't remember now. Sorry, Donna. And I don't have it in front of me, so I can't. But after looking at the one that she wanted and going over the questionnaire, we realized actually you have lower numbers in this area, even though how do I word that? The three different assessments were showing three different answers. On the brief soul survey, she wrote everything pretty high. There was nothing below a 7, and it was just, she looked like she was having a good time. And then the assessment, you could see a little bit more clear where there was some struggle areas. Plus, the numbers were easier to calculate and look at. But then even after we did that, we went back to the questionnaires, and then we were able to like focus in like, whoa, you have a lot of 4s in this section. Like that means something. Like that's below, the cutoff there. So I know that we switched one of the branches to psychological. And I think that was a good switch that we did. Um, the wrapping up. I'm used to dealing with clients, knowing that I'll see them next week. And so it's kind of like this, all right,
Yeah.
this was awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you next week. Same time. And that didn't happen. And so I was like, okay. And it was like, I guess I'll see you Tuesday.
Right.
And it felt odd.
Well, and a couple of the emails that I've received from people, I wrote a couple notes down that, maybe one of the things I need to do is talk about how to wrap things up, and also, kind of how to work through kind of the soul health plan, because for some people they're like, ooh, I didn't really know where to go with that. And I'm more than happy to do that. So it's probably, like you said, this was a practice. So, closure is different than it is in a therapy session
Yes,
but
a lot different.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it was on my side of it, I felt like I gave a very cold exit, which I don't like. I don't like that it felt that way for, on my side. Um, and it's something that I will, work on. Like, okay, how do I end this in a more warm, inviting, encouraging way than just
mhm,
like, okay, peace out.
right. Well, and
Um,
so these are all practice situations, and so this is good reflection to go, oh, how would I do that differently? And if it is someone I may not see again, how would I say, hey, what would we do with this?
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so again, like I said, I wrote that down. Let me make sure that's not someone else trying to get in.
good. Yes. But overall, it was an awesome experience. I very much enjoyed learning more about Donna than I did before.
Well, to me, this is one of the reasons we do practices with people in the group, is to kind of get to know each other. And I think this is great. So wonderful. Wonderful. Good job. Good
Thanks.
job. All right. So I'm going to mark that one. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Good job. And I am trying to give a little feedback on the written summaries. I've gotten through most of them. I think there's one or two I haven't gotten back to people yet. So as time goes on, I'll get those back. So yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Who would like to go next? And then we'll kind of do some group kind of feedback at the end.
Dr. Kelly, would you like me to wait to do mine until I've sent it to you? Because I skipped that part.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could send it to me after. Yeah. I'm, like I said, I'm a Sagittarian. I'm probably too flexible for my own good, but no, that's just fine. Yeah.
Okay,
So if you would like to present, that's fine. And if not, that's fine as well.
sure, I can present.
Perfect.
This is on fellow traveler here in the group, Susan Dorset.
Okay.
And Susan, I just became acquainted with through this class. I think all of you guys are new acquaintances to me in this class, and so where some of you probably know each other already. But she holds a bachelor's degree in elementary education and a master's in special education, which to me is already, one of those I have a high degree of respect for anybody who can find a way to break through and reach kids. So anyway, she's in her late 40s and been married for 25 years consecutively to the same person, another big deal in my book, and is a mom to a 22-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son. There are currently a few changes happening in the family dynamic, both of which are significant, but positive. And she talked about one of them earlier today. Her son is leaving the nest, and so they're going to be officially, she and her husband, empty nesters. And she's transitioning from a full-time volunteer to a part-time volunteer and a full-time student, which is huge. That's a big shift. So I talked to her. I think one of my first questions was about what it felt like to fill out the survey. And she talked about described redoing them for this because at this point in the class, she's in a different place than when she first filled them out. And I had that same experience, but I didn't go back and redo them. So mine look a little weird. Back in April, I was in a different place than now. So anyway, I thought that was worth noting.
Well,
She
and
feels
can I
like
say something about that? That's how quickly the human condition can change things, and that's how quickly our trees can shift. So that's a very good observation because it's amazing how quickly things can, again, today and tomorrow, your branch surveys might look completely different, and that's why it can be used to me as a good educational tool. So yeah, absolutely.
well, and they're equally honest. They're just at different places in time and hopefully equally authentic.
Yep.
But she feels like the ones that I reviewed are an accurate assessment of where she is today. And we talked about the lowest three branches being social, sexual, and financial. However, she's already working on the financial and the sexual. She has an action plan for those. So we kept our discussion on the social branch for purposes of this exercise. So my initial impressions for somebody who is strong and intelligent, presents well, comes across, she just engenders confidence. I would trust her. I would feel very comfortable in like a client professional setting with Susan. I do. But she also, she's got this really big heart and finds it feels to me like feels joy, gets sense of joy from helping others. So I think that, because her servant heart is so much a part of her, she's like a light. And, it's like a beacon, but it also draws moths, if you know what I mean.
Love that.
So, you have people who are affirming, and then we talked about as time has gone on for her, if she has had more people who are affirming her social branch as opposed to draining. And it feels a little, if you don't mind me saying so, Susan, a little off balance, with the exception of one truly close friend. Most of the others are depleting as opposed to affirming. So, but she is, as y'all know, friendly and approachable. And while she likes to be in she's comfortable in social situations, she prefers alone time. We also discovered we have the same distaste for chit chat. You get into these social situations and you're out and you're trying to mix and mingle and just I'd rather have a smaller group of people who I know and trust. And Susan expressed the same, where you can have substantive discussions that really are meaningful and soul affirming.
Okay.
And so she does have some of that. She does have a lot of that. So that was good. And equally content to spend time by herself as much as she is in groups and in crowds with other people. So we talked through the social branch questionnaire, and she was observing, as I recall, like how many opportunities to serve get presented to her throughout the course of a week or a day or a month, sometimes a day. So, and how little time would be left for her if she were to continue to say yes to all those opportunities. So we talked about redrawing boundary lines in some places and what that might look like, but still, remaining available for the most important people and relationships in her world. So I think we talked about too, having that variety of people, the shallow acquaintance type relationships that you do things with, and then the deeper ones, and then the true inner circle closest friends. And she's got, a variety of friends and acquaintances that fill that social circle. Let's see. We did brainstorm a couple of ideas on how to shift into a new normal as she goes into these full-time student years, and potential ways to deflect time-draining projects and commitments so that she can maintain her optimal health and sense of well-being. And I think in terms of, as I was reading back through the guidelines on presentation, it asked for any recommendations or suggestions that I would have. And the only thing would be to continue to try to decrease the amount of volunteer time and doing things that take away from her time from what's really important, and certainly from the coursework. Postpone considering any new volunteer invitations until after school's over, and try to find some time in her week, each week, just to have some fun, just for her.
Wonderful. And again, it sounds like the rapport was really good between you two. And you know, with not having had one-on-one time, it just sounds like you did a lovely job of kind of jumping in and having a good rapport, which is fantastic.
We had a great conversation. These have all been really, the conversations have all been really fun for me. But yes, Donna and I had a great conversation, and time evaporated as well. That sounds like it did. Anyway, it was great. I appreciate your kind words, Donna. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Wonderful. Yeah, and you did a great job of it sounds like, and this is something that's so wonderful. You did a great job of not only kind of working through the assessments with her, but also making suggestions and also kind of just jumping right into kind of problem solving. And so it felt, from how you described it, it felt fairly natural. Was that true for you, Donna?
Mitch, we did well. It just flowed. Yeah,
Perfect.
so I felt comfortable enough, and like I said, I felt really comfortable with Susan. I felt comfortable enough that I could throw some things out there for her to consider.
Wonderful. Yeah, it sounds like
She
you
did.
did
She did the same. So it was back and forth. It wasn't just me.
wonderful. Sounds like you did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank
That's
you.
great. That was
Oh,
great.
wonderful. Good job. Yay. Wonderful. I love it when kind of the personality of the person starts to come out and, you know, you just kind of let it flow into a session. So, yeah, wonderful job. Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Because I think we had, so Kim's already presented, Donna presented, Mara was going to present. If you want to go back through, I think Krista, are you free from child right now? Okay. So if you want to go on with your next
Yeah.
one, that's fine.
I'm sitting out at the library. She's with her math coach. Okay. So this next one was very challenging. It's Dr. M. He's 50, so he's male. And he's been a mentor of mine for 18 years. He lived in Winston-Salem. That's where we originally met. And he has always appreciated my teaching gifts. And so he was my boss when I taught part-time at Winston-Salem State. And then he was my boss through Jackson State University, where I teach currently until he left. He is a dean of a social work program in Virginia. This is his third university in his career. He's published books. He's never been married. Said he was engaged once. Just said he was too young to be a husband. His career has been his focus, and he's been what I would consider a potential workaholic ever since I've known him. He identifies as heterosexual. His parents, who are in their 70s, are going through a divorce. He shares that his mother has had a lifelong struggle with mental illness. And he's really, maybe not until our session, really even considered like how that impacted him as a person. And so those are some questions that I had kind of asked him along the way, because that seemed to continue to kind of come to the surface. And there were a couple of times that he paused because he really wanted to kind of contemplate that, which again, this was just a little different because this is a mentor of mine, but I think I did pretty well staying in the truth of who I am in the process. He does identify as Christian, but when I talked a little bit about the soul health model and showed the healthy tree, the wilted tree, again, he's an educator, so I knew I needed to add just a little bit of education around it. he really was intrigued about seeing himself, as a tree, so to speak. Let's see here. I did ask him before we even dove into his three top branches of potential focus, what he's learning from this divorce of his parents. And more importantly, like, what is he learning from his mom and dad during this situation? And, he said that his mom had given him a chance to learn how to love someone from a distance. He is an African American man, and his family culture is one that's very tight knit. His younger sister lives with him in Virginia. She also has her doctorate. So they're very high achieving, very deeply educated folks. And I think that from some of these questions on the survey in our session, again, he's in the social work profession and he's a macro social worker, had not seemingly spent much time, I guess, self-reflecting over some of his own life journey in this way, at least as it relates to his mom. At some point, he was able to make the connection in the session that probably what he did and didn't get from his mother kind of steered him away from feeling safe, secure, and ready to be in a committed long-term relationship, marriage or not, whatever. I didn't, of course, judge any of that, especially not me. I've had my own experience with all that. But, it was so interesting to be able to sit across the screen from Dr. M, who has just really had a hand on my life. And so this was just really, I had to kind of process this by myself for 30 minutes when we were done. He did, so his three top things were sexual health. Again, another challenge one, right? When you're with your mentor. But of course, I'm happy to talk about it with anybody. I just don't know who's comfortable talking about that.
You, yeah.
Right. I have to be careful about that. But sexual, physical, and I'm trying to find the third one, physical health. And so I'm trying to think what the third one was off the top of my head. Sorry. His was over 2 pages of notes I typed. So anyway, he wanted to, of course, address the physical things that he's facing. He's having issues with sleep. He's already medically addressing that. And so he was, again, trying to contemplate kind of like how to incorporate better physical activity and health. We even talked a little bit about when he wakes up in the middle of the night, how he immediately gets on his phone, social media, etc. And so Dr. M and I talked a little bit about the brain science behind that. Again, he knows just as much as I do or more probably, but hadn't really, I guess, had a chance or opportunity to kind of sit and contemplate some of that. And so he did a little brainstorming around how things that he can do to kind of try to break that pattern, because then he gets sleepy and then he doesn't want to get up, in time to get to work and whatnot. Let's see here. He talked a lot about how much he does do and care for others and has neglected himself most of his adult life, which again, we tied that back to wonder, what connection there is or isn't, between your relationship with your mom, etc., about all of that. He loved the surveys. He was reflective over them before we met. He did not send me his survey markings, just the survey results, which I respected again because I recognized that he was taking a risk, so to speak, to meet with me and talk about these things. So let's see here. I did feel weak with this session with him in terms of how to tie it all together, because there were so many moving parts with him on top of that, and my own self-awareness maybe of his role as my mentor I allowed get in the way a little bit. I can so see how I did that.
Right.
He also was curious and a little bit uncomfortable. He did talk a little bit about why the sexual survey, like he just talked about age and again, lack of physical activity, how that's impacted his stamina. you know, I did ask a question or two around that, just trying to be sensitive, but I also acknowledge that this is something he's thinking about. And so, asked about what conversations has he had with his doctor about that, just like is the potential sleep apnea and whatnot. He wants to continue the conversation, which I admit I started to squirm in my seat because again, like this is my mentor, right?
Yeah,
Right. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, so I asked him what he needed to feel supported next because it doesn't have to be, with me. He's a
right.
reflector, or it could be. I'm open to that if that's helpful to him or not. But he did ask if I would send him the psychological. That was the other third branch. He asked if I would send him the long surveys for the psychological branch in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks after that, he wants me to send him the long survey around the sexual branch. And he had a little tear in his eye. Um, and he said that the session, he's proud of his sister. She has gotten therapy for how to deal with their parents' divorce. We were able to realize that his sister is responding differently than their family culture has, which is not to address it. She is going to get support in the process. And I think that in the session, he began to realize that he too wants to kind of break that pattern, the pattern of not dealing with it. How can he seek support for himself?
Mhm.
And so I just think so many things came to the surface all at one time. And again, I think my own feelings around him being my mentor, I allowed to get in the way a little bit. So I just tried to give myself some grace and say, well, I certainly followed his lead somewhat. I still gave
That's great.
some
Yeah.
directional questions
Mhm.
and exploration. But I really wanted him to feel safe in this space with this soul health model. I wanted him to walk away feeling safe with all of that. So that's
So this, great job. And I think Krista, one of the things, and I'm always aware of the gender aspects,
yes,
because from a cultural perspective, males don't process their emotions. They don't process, like they don't think holistically. Women are more likely to. But what's fascinating with men is that they love surveys. They love something that they can wrap their heads
okay,
around because they want to think and they want to nosh everything through and go in their little caves and then come out and talk about them. So that might have been why it kind of invited him to, like, he had a little time to process it a little bit before obviously feeling very comfortable talking to you about it. Um, and I think about timing too. It's like that phase of life. I'm thinking through the human factors as everybody's talking. He might actually be at that phase of life factor, that human factor of, he's probably more reflective than he would have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So you probably caught him at a really good time for him to get some seeds planted. But when you do work with males, it's a different energy. It is a different energy because women, oftentimes will just keep going, going, going. And men, you have to pull at a little bit more. Now, it also doesn't surprise me that he wanted to talk about the physical because it's the safest branch.
right,
For a
yeah.
male, it
I
is the
thought about that.
safest branch to talk about. Men actually have very difficult times talking about money because they're taught to be the breadwinners. They're taught to be the ones that, that's like where their power comes from. So a lot of times they don't want to talk about money. So these are some of the gender things to start weaving into that, you don't think about until you start talking to people and you start having these experiences. I appreciate how appreciative you were of knowing he was a mentor of yours because, again, I think it was probably a privilege to do this, but at the same time, when you enter into a relationship like that, meaning that it's kind of flipping things, not only are you a little bit on the spot, but then you've become the expert. And then it's like that can throw an interesting dynamic into it as well, because he didn't have a clue where you were going to go with any of this. But at the same time, you were like doing this multi layered processing of what was actually happening. So again, good work, and it's good that you were being reflective of your own process along the way. Yeah.
I
Anything?
very much, yeah.
Go ahead.
I just very much like this, even though I'm less excited about the results of this one I probably benefited the most from because it wasn't so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and what I just wrote down, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about ethics, but that whole idea of dual relationships,
Yes.
um, it's not unusual for, a colleague. In fact, I had a colleague I met through a line. Actually, no, actually, someone I did a reading for thought that this person should meet me because she's a therapist in a different state. And so we were meeting and just, once a month we'd have these conversations. And then all of a sudden she wanted to become a soul healing client. And it was one of those things where I had to have a conversation with her about that we really couldn't be friendly colleagues if I was doing, readings for her because and coaching is more of a soul coaching with her. And so, you're going to run into situations like this, and it's important for the dual relationship piece. But we'll talk more about that as time goes on. But yeah, nice job. And I'm sure that, like you said, you had to process that for a while after the session. So
I did.
yeah,
I
it
did.
takes some guts to do one of these on a mentor.
What was I thinking? When I went back and looked at the people I sent emails to, inviting them to participate, I was like, what was I thinking? I wasn't. I just went for my soul, and just did it. And this is what you get, right? So I feel like I've benefited the most of all of them, of this one from him.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and when we're challenged, that's where our growth really, I mean, that's when we stretch our
Yes.
edges. So it's good. So good job.
And I wanted to just briefly mention, and Dr. Kelly already knows this because I've emailed her, and I'm not concerned about having enough of these. I'm going to have more than my 5 I need. But I also had approached someone else who the day I took that person the surveys, and then a day I saw her a few days later, both days, I was sure that this person is over consuming alcohol. And so I've I'm not reaching back out to do a session with that person. So I just wanted to mention I've had that experience already as well. Like, oh, this person's got a lot going on. Doesn't mean I won't if she reaches out to me, but I'm not going to pursue her.
Yeah.
Because this is someone that I didn't know this about them until I approached them about these
Right.
surveys.
Right.
So
Good point. And I'm glad you brought this up. I didn't know if you'd bring it up today or another time. So, there are going to be times when people either do seek your services and you realize, whoo, this is not a good situation, and you're going to have a conversation about that. Or, you're set up to do something and they don't even realize that their particular situation is probably not going to be conducive to an effective soul healing session. And I could give you all kinds of scenarios about that from what I've experienced. But I think it's a good point that you have to use your judgment at some point to go, okay, and it's an ethical thing as far as I'm concerned to use your judgment to say, yeah, this isn't a good situation. On the other hand, if someone who is over consuming alcohol and they are seeking this because they're like, okay, I know I need to do like a broad sweep, then in some ways, these can be very helpful because, some of the questions on the physical branch are, I can't remember the exact wording, but are you consuming too much alcohol or using too much substances? And so sometimes they need an objective wake-up call. And that's a case where if that person was open and receptive, you could actually use the soul health model to show them how many branches are being affected because of that. So it just depends on, again, you're going to have to use your own intuition about the receptivity and the willingness for a person to, change or and you may go through an entire assessment and never hear from them again because they can't handle, the fact that they've got to change. I mean, you could have all kinds of different things happening. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up and also being aware of, yeah, maybe not such a good situation.
well, and I appreciate you giving me some things to think about. Like I said, if she reaches out, I'm willing, but I'm not gonna like follow up.
Right.
And the other thing I'm noticing and hearing you talk about this is this reveals to me again, like my dad had multiple addictions, including alcohol. So I'm sure there's a part of this that triggers that
For
in
you.
me. So
Absolutely.
that's good for me to notice that as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep, self-awareness is the key, as they say, through that cliche, but it's very true that, yeah, it might be triggering some stuff for you. But that's good for you to, if it does trigger, to start going through and going, okay, what can I learn from having had that experience as far as healing another layer of your own soul health? Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. Good job. Tricky situation, but with her. And with him, even though you said it was a difficult one for you, you obviously did very well. You obviously knew how to navigate it, which, is big. So wonderful. All right. Cool. All right. Anybody else want to present another person? We've got a little time. Okay, everybody's quiet, and that's fine. Um, we will just have to make sure we get to many of them next time. Any questions or feedback go ahead, Krista.
I've got a third. It's up to you. I can do a third. I've got my third. I've got another one or not.
It's okay if you want to, and then
Okay,
I have
I'll
some
knock it
comments
out.
afterward. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll knock it out so we
Sure.
have more time another time. Okay, this next person is Natalie, age 32. I've known her for 3 years. Um, she went back to school as a non-traditional student to work on a double master's in social work and public health. And so I was her internship supervisor. She was doing an internship at a place and she needed somebody with a master's in social work, and there wasn't anyone there. So that's how she and I connected. She and I have stayed in contact. She's a mentee, that kind of thing.
Great.
She works at UNC Chapel Hill in a public health clinic as an administrator. She's married, has been for 8 years, two biological children, and one bonus son from her husband's previous relationship.
Okay.
Her husband is a finance manager at a car dealership, which is interesting. I'll get to that in a minute. She identifies as a Black woman who attends a liberal Christian church in Greensboro, North Carolina. And her sister have recently been partnering to help their mom complete cancer treatments. Her mother's now in cancer remission. Now, the interesting thing, Natalie, again, is always interested in what I'm doing and up to because she knows I'm into metaphysics and all that stuff. Even though she's, clearly identifies as a Christian, she's a very open-minded Christian. She was excited to complete the surveys. Her highest score was spiritual health, which did not surprise me. She identifies herself as a woman of great faith. Her lowest score was financial health, as well as physical health and psychological. She wanted to focus on financial, which again, remember her husband's a finance manager at a car dealership. She got a little teary-eyed that she's again a reflector. She got a little teary-eyed when thinking about the surveys and the way she was very complimentary of the surveys and the way the surveys kind of had her stop and think about different aspects of her life. She said that she could have told you without the surveys that one of the lowest ones would be financial health. And she got into why this is. Her dad, it's been very hard for her to trust her husband to be a financial partner in their marriage because of her experiences with her dad as a child.
Okay.
Her dad has worked the same job for 30 something years, makes great money, but she grew up watching her dad be a womanizer, spend money on expensive clothes for himself, et cetera, et cetera. And they had to grow up relying on her mom's income, which was very little and then almost non-existent after her mom was in a bad car accident. She and I had that in common. So I knew that I had to kind of observe myself for my own triggers because that's the experience I have with my own dad.
Sure.
He blew it on alcohol, women, clothes. So her mother at some point divorced her dad when she was a child before age 7. So her mother had to also rely on Medicaid, WIC, and some other things. And Natalie said she just has so much embarrassment and grew up with so much shame because even when they were divorced, like her dad didn't help anything with them financially.
Yeah.
But she also saw her mom, even though her mom divorced him, still be kind, like would give him rides because he could never keep up with car payments or pay for a car, pack his lunch, drop him off at his girlfriend's. Like Natalie just cannot really understand why her mom did all of that. We were able to talk a little bit about what that may have been like for her mom and how that has contributed to her mom's medical health concerns. We tapped into that just a little bit. So when I asked her to describe her feelings, she always blamed her dad for the reason her mom struggled financially. Um, and so when I asked her, how this kind of impacted her, she hadn't really stopped to piece together how that experience with her dad impacts her own marriage with her own husband, who has given her zero reasons to doubt his financial spending, how he supports the family, etc. And she'll like, my husband will tell you, because they were together 3 or 4 years before they married, like it's been 8 years of really hard on my husband because I've just, this one is something they've really struggled with. So she cried a lot during the session, thinking about spending patterns, how it's hard for her to even look at their money and how they do this and how they spend that, etc. She said she has, a lot of college debt, etc. But she'd not again really thought much about those connections. And so we also looked at that long survey together again to kind of help her in the moment kind of stay grounded with some of the human factors of the financial survey in terms of choices and like talk a little bit about why it is so hard for her to look at these things, because they obviously, I mean, they both make good money. So what's the stress about, so to speak? And it really came down to her, I guess she felt triggered to even try to look at their finances. So let's see here. Again, she's a reflector, was willing to take a look at these different aspects between human life trauma experiences. I did talk to her a little bit about what might she be learning from her mom and dad with their marriage and how their lives have kind of unfolded. And so she did some reflection around that. And then so when I, kind of got to the whole, so how are you feeling? What are you wanting to do or be next around this financial stuff? And so she came up with the idea. She really wants them, to purchase a home. They live in rent a townhome in Greensboro. She's like, there's no reason we are not homeowners. And culturally, that is a big symbol of success in her culture. And so she brainstormed in the session, talking to her husband, which she said he's going to fall over that I'm even approaching him anything about finances because of everything I've shared. She knows of someone in their church that is kind of like in the financial world. And so she came up with the possibility of talking to her husband about seeing if he would be willing, the finance manager at the car dealership, to also go talk to this woman. It's a woman in their church that is also in the financial field as it relates to home ownership, etc. And so that's what she came up with as a potential next step, given her reflection of the surveys, her connection about the trauma, and also wanting to prevent any future resistance that she's pouring into her relationship with her husband about this financial stuff. I think in some ways she's beginning to wonder if she's the holdback, not the money, but her relationship with money.
Good awareness. Yep.
So I thought that was really good on her part to kind of question and sit with that a little bit.
Good.
That's it.
So,
and she's only 32, but anyway.
So one thing I want us to do, since we do have time, so So for others, and we're going to start this with Krista's. So with what you just heard Krista present, which branches, other than the financial, are being affected by the story, the soul story that Krista just shared? So I want you to start conceptualizing and weaving this together. And even if you don't talk to someone about it, and this kind of goes back to your comment, Kim, that, well, this is like a one-shot deal. Well, for some of you, it won't be, because especially in level 2, level 3, level 4, you might be going back to these same people to do a little bit more stuff. But this is a great way to go, okay, so what else might I need to address in the long run? So go ahead, Kim.
I said environmental mostly because of that wanting to purchase a home. Like that's a huge branch in the environmental. I'm trying to think what else.
Psychological.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about the psychological, Donna?
Oh, well, just being aware of the scars from what she, came away from her relationship with her dad. And being cognizant too that they're playing into her relationship with her husband. And I'll just leave it at that.
Well, and then you just segued into another branch. So
I was going to say
interpersonal.
interpersonal as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me more about that, both of you. And Eleanor, you were going to say something too, but either Susan or Eleanor kind of go with that. So what about the social or the interpersonal?
Well, it's definitely affecting her relationship with her husband. It's a little bit of a block.
Yep. So you can now see how one of the focal points might spread out into the other branches. So let's weave in some of the human factors. What are the human factors that could be playing a part in this, in addition to kind of that interweaving, the interplay of those branches? Because you brought cultural into this. So the cultural factor. So again, that one is a huge overlay for a lot of people.
Gender roles.
Gender roles. Could be phase of life stuff too, because at 32, you're going through this identity kind of thing of who am I, where am I viable, where am I not viable? So is a house a symbol of being a viable adult? You've got that possibility. You really, if you think about a lot of these, you can start plugging in these factors and going, oh, wow, a lot of these could be playing a big part in this. So in saying that, Krista, do you want to add anything because I know I had everybody else reflect, but since you actually sat with this person, is there anything else you would add from either some of the branches that you saw as part of the conversation, or some of the human factors, or even some of the soul factors at this point?
Yeah. So I don't think so. I'm still kind of processing, because I appreciate the other branches that you all have identified. And, it's interesting because just in general, ever since a kid, I can see these things in energy fields. And this class is helping me to get comfortable again talking about them, if that makes sense. Whereas as a kid, I was shut down about it. And so again, I think that's what I appreciate about the tree and the branches is it helps, I think, pull out for people to see symbols and things I can see in their energy field anyway. So I just need to add that, because I think, again, that's why some of this is so in the moment. I'm like, God, like I see all this stuff, but I appreciate being able to then use the branches as a way to get them to self-reflect And so I could even see how in this session, if I had thought about that, especially I think the psychological one, because I was thinking environmental from a child is being recreated environmentally in her marriage. Like I
Mhm.
can see that. And I also think with Natalie, the psychological branch probably maybe would have been most helpful in the session if I had even, thought about that.
Mhm. Yeah, and this is where the practice comes in, and this is why I think from this point on, because I wanted everybody to get their feet wet, but from this point on, I'm going to kind of open this up after people present to start saying, "Oh, what branches do you see that haven't been talked about?" Because the more you listen and the more you kind of start to envision how interdynamic the tree is for the branches, but then how the soul factors will fade, or the human factors will fade in and out according to what's going on. I think it's just going to help season the whole thought process even more and deepen kind of where you might be able to go with people. Because this is the other thing about being a soul healing practitioner or a therapist, if that's what you're going to end up doing, is you're going to see things far before that person sees them. And you might not even bring them up for weeks or months because your intuition is like, yeah, they're not ready for that. But you're going to weave it into your own conceptualization of working with them in order to go, okay, well, I know a while back you mentioned this, and then you're going to like open some doors for people. So if you end up doing soul coaching, if you end up doing just 1 or 2 sessions with people, I mean, you can still do a ton of opening up the picture for people. So this is why the conceptualization piece is so important, because you will pick up on things that person is not aware of yet. And it's just, that's again a big part of using your own kind of your own foresight with it, but also your own intuition with it. So I think what I would encourage for write-ups, as you're finishing up your write-ups, and I know I mentioned this in one of the either in the email or the suggestion for how to write them up, is maybe go back and really look at, okay, so we didn't really spend time with this, but now I can see how this is related to other branches that we might need to talk about if we were working together, but then also maybe list some of the human factors that might be playing a part. Now, the other part of it is some of the soul factors are going to start playing a part, because you might be having these conversations and just within an hour or two of you listening to them, you might hear several things that they are sharing that again, you will be able to see in your own mind's eye how this kind of weaves together, but you might start seeing themes that are related to life lessons. Whether it was, and I know you mentioned kind of the whole idea of, the husband really reminded, I can't remember which one of you, the husband really well, in this case, the husband reminded her of her father. Okay, so there's a pattern there that could be forming. Or what about the same kinds of relationships people get in? Okay, so there's a life lesson there. So it's just how to start weaving all of these things together, because when you package it, you're going to have such a powerful picture to present back to them that will go, oh, wow, I didn't even see that. And that's part, again, of becoming a soul healing practitioner, is just to help. Again, the very first soul factor is soul consciousness. The more you can kind of open that up for them, the better. So I would play with that for the write-ups and for the presentations, is start to do that. But I'm gonna start to have everybody chime in a little bit more, and just as you're listening, and then that'll help deepen. I think everybody's perspective, if that makes sense. Because, by the way, we have blind spots. We can be sitting there with a client and go, okay, I'm not seeing that. So sometimes having the group feedback is really helpful too. Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, good job. Good job. All right. Anybody else want to present? Donna?
Is it okay if I ask Krista an energy question?
Sure.
So when you were talking about you could see it showing up in her energy field, um, I don't know if this is something you visualize or if you feel it or how this works for you, but I mean, to me, it just seemed like a cloud over certain aspects, like certain chakras had a cloud over them. And while you see it as a block, she may not. Does that make sense?
Do you want to respond to that?
No, I mean that makes great sense. And I think one thing I didn't anticipate just happening for me in this experience, which makes perfect sense, is that as a kid, the things I can see in energy fields, I shut down. Because when I would talk about it as a kid, I would, always
Right?
be, you know,
Yeah.
and so this has been kind of just allowed me to give myself permission to do that again. Now I've just got to contemplate how and when to reintegrate that back into my
Yes.
demonstration of who I am.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it because
Yeah.
I see them a lot. I comment on them rarely.
Mhm.
And so it
Okay.
feels good to like, oh, okay, So I'm trying to fold in what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, all of that. And it has just felt so gosh darn good. Um, to give myself permission to even notice them again or allow myself to even think about speaking about them. That sounds crazy, I know, because I am 49, but it has felt really, really good to have the reason, I guess, so to speak, because I see them all the time.
So, and
So
Donna, you
yes.
brought up a good point too, is, for those of you who don't know what the chakras are, that's something that actually in later trainings we're going to talk about to help people understand, because the chakras are energy centers. We're going to actually talk about the energy body and the soul body, because there's so many different layers to our actual quote body. It's not just the physicality, it's we've got layers. But that's where some of the intuitive stuff comes from. And I think for you, Krista, again, reigniting that I think is going to be important. But then I'm hoping, this is just my own hope, is that, what you're learning here, you will have some things to anchor the language to so you can translate that for the person so that they have something they can go by, if that makes any sense.
In a way that they can hear it.
Right.
Like that's
Yes.
that's that's the thing to be able to um translate it, so to speak. And see, it's funny because they 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 always show me symbols. Like they use the funniest symbols in people's energy fields to give me stuff. So it's hilarious. Sometimes I just in daily today, anybody, my daughter,
Yeah.
I'll see certain symbols and I have to just like not laugh sometimes because it's funny.
Mhm.
But I've just shut that down and turned it off for so long.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Which is a good point too, that everybody sees things differently, and that's why you've got clairaudience. That's why you've got clairsentience. That's why, and we'll talk about all that later, but there's so many different ways that people tune into the energies. And it's like you have to kind of build on the information until it works. Let me say it. You have to build on the information before you can tune in and attune to whatever is going to work the best for you, because everybody's different. But I think the chakra system, like you said, Donna, it's a great way to get started for people to just understand what all corresponds with the chakras that are in our bodies, because there's so many things that can. And again, that may sound like Swahili if you're not sure what a chakra is, but we're going to talk more about all of that as we go forth, because it's going to help build the bigger picture of how we are energetic beings and how these soul wounds get stuck in our energetic fields. There's so many different ways to just talk about that. So yeah, I think this is great because in some ways it's like planting seeds for moving forward. Yeah. Did you get your question answered, Donna? So
Oh,
that
yeah. I just wondered what her perception of it was and how she was processing that within the framework of the assessment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And there's something what I call the soul skeleton. It does not look like a skeleton, perhaps, but it's like when I do So as part of the soul realignment sessions, at the end of it, or sometimes after, I do a soul clearing where I remove the karmic, I call them karmic strands. Again, I've got my own language for this stuff, but I remove the karmic strands from the soul structure and from that soul skeleton so that that person can work through their karmic stuff easier. But again, it's just how I see it. So I try to keep it wide open for how people see it, which is exactly why when we did the soul journey during the last half day intensive, I left it as open as I can because I don't want to ever assume what a person's going to generate as their image of their soul. And that's why I think for so many of you it was powerful. It's like, you have to kind of let the soul do the work, which again, we're going to talk about in other trainings, is that learning how to partner with the person that you're working with and give them and like guide them enough, but give them enough space to generate from their own souls what's going to be powerful for them. It's an art form. It is an art form to do that because if you spoon feed too much information, then you're influencing them and you're really not going to have, they are not going to have as powerful of an experience. So, I mean, there's a lot to, to work on with this stuff. But again, this is coming and, that's part of, that's part of what's evolving with this. So, yeah, wonderful. Any other thoughts, questions? Good job, guys. This is the fun part because I get to see how you're like molding all of this and working through this and it's super cool. So this is awesome. Questions, thoughts, concerns, and then I have just a couple of things I'm going to throw in there. Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
I got just a little thing. When I'm using this with my clients, because there's some of them are my practice people too, it's because I only get that hour or 50 minutes with them, it's taking a lot longer, a lot longer. Because they come in, there's that 10, 15 minutes of just like recap, how you're doing, what's going on. And then I try to jump back in and I don't know, it's just so how does that look in a regular, like in one of your settings? Do you have to come back like multiple times to?
So good question. I think part of it is when I do these full assessments, it's with a brand new client. So I don't have to catch up on where they have been for the last week or two. So it's really literally just diving in. And so there's a different dynamic that, because you're working with people that you're working with.
Mhm.
So, that's part of this. And I think that is where, kind of picking and choosing which surveys you do with them and when you do them. And you might need to schedule a separate session that, this is all you're going to do with them during this time, but it is going to inform the therapeutic nature of what unfolds for you in the therapy. So you
Yes.
might have to
Okay.
get a little creative with that. But, I think that's the challenge of working with an actual client using these
Mhm.
is unless you set it up as this is actually an assessment hour, then they're going to want to nosh away on whatever they've already been working
Yes.
on with you. So there is a dynamic to it that will, unfold. Now, I have had clients that I've been working with for a while that have said, "Oh, hey, yeah, I want to do some of this," and then I'm one of those people where I set it up, I structure it, and say, "So if we're going to do this, this is how the energy of that session is going to go. We're going to really focus on that. So I want to make sure that we take care of the other stuff outside, in previous sessions or something."
Yes.
So you just set up a guardrails.
Yeah.
But you can do it lots of different ways. It may be that, you already have, like you might send them home with the paperwork, have them
Mhm.
reflect and bring it back as part of their therapy assignment
Yes.
and just kind of jump in and say, okay, what was that like for you and what did you learn? And so you could do it that way too.
Yeah. And you know what else I think I'm hung up on? You have in the soul health plan three things that they're supposed to identify three branches, and I'm like we can't just do one, we have to do all three. And then I get hung up on it when really the one could be the important one that needs that full attention at that moment, and then some other day, time, year, um we'll attack a different branch.
Absolutely. And keep in mind that when I'm doing like paid soul health assessments, I schedule 2 hours and then another hour later. So it is like very like structured, and it's, I have them do a lot of reflection, but I save a good part of that 2 hour session for, okay, let's work through this, what did you prioritize? What were you kind of thinking? And then kind of coach them through where they do actionable kind of steps in there. So again, I think it's because you're using like real life people. But you might want to try this with a friend or two, like completely separate, and just say, okay, let me work through this whole process so I get the hang of doing that. And then
Yeah.
just see how that goes versus trying to weave it into client work. So,
Good
or a
idea.
friend or a family or your daughter or someone, you can
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of weave that in just to get some practice otherwise. Yeah, good questions. And see, this is it. This is however you're going to use this for real life stuff. Yeah, Krista, okay, I see your hand.
Two quick questions. Number one, when would you use the short survey?
The soul brief or the brief soul survey.
Mhm.
So a couple different ways. I actually, when it was in office new clients, it was literally part of my intake. I literally had it as part of my intake. Because then I can get a very quick scan of where a person's at. And then basically, depending on how much time we had during that intake session, I would actually go over it with them then or save it for a session or two later. As a therapist, I tend to look at my intake sessions as taking 3 or 4 sessions because I am collecting a ton of information. When it is a soul healing client who has signed up for a soul health assessment, it's in the packet of all of them. The good thing with one of the good things with that brief soul survey is if you have them, it's kind of like you can do it. I like to do it early in the beginning of me working with someone just to get a quick assessment, but you can use that as a baseline and then say, hey, 3 months later, hey, why don't you fill this out again and we'll compare. Or even a
Okay.
year or 2 years or 7 years, whatever, however long you're working with someone in under what capacity, because it's still informative and instructive. And it's kind of like a couple of you already said, you would have filled these out differently in April than you would have now.
Right.
Life
So it's
is
almost so it could
life
almost
changes.
be used as a way to look for progress and
Yes.
or potential barriers. Okay.
Yeah,
My second
progress
question.
or falling backwards and asking, what's going on here with what is shifting downward in this, and or maybe their physical health was fantastic in the beginning and then they were diagnosed with something, and
Right.
how did that change the constellation of all the other factors. So I mean, like I said, I'm having a human condition day. Well, clients have human condition lives a lot of times. So yeah, good.
My other quick question was, or question, or maybe suggestion or idea. I had wondered if something else to maybe consider when you do the class again. I wondered if it would be helpful for us to observe you doing a short session or two with a volunteer or something in the class.
Sure.
Just something that I had thought about, in my own process. That's all.
Probably what I would do is actually videotape one. And then we can talk about it afterward, because that way, I mean, literally mine are like 2 hours long. So it would be one of those things where, if you really want to see what I do with them, I'd have to record
Yeah.
it and we could talk about it later. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Or I was just thinking just something modified for the students to see or whatnot. But I love that idea of us watching it and then we can come to class or session or whatever with questions and ideas. Okay.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good suggestion, and it could be a really good teachable, moment for that too. Wonderful. Yeah, and what's interesting for me is that it also depends on, how much intuition they want me to weave in, because, some people are like, nope, I just want to do the soul health assessment without you weaving any intuition, and other people are like, hey, bring it on, whatever you get from spirit, bring that in too. So it's really, again, I try to design it according to what the person's comfort level and needs are. And it's easy to derail the process if you get into something that I never think of it as a derailment. I always think about it as, okay, that's where we were supposed to go, you know. So, yeah. I'm a huge believer that spirit will give you the information you need or direct you in the way that you need to go. So sometimes you do have to be flexible with, the process. Yeah. Great questions and great suggestions. Anything else? Anybody else? Great job. This is wonderful to see how you're integrating all of this. I want to give you another update. I had a very wonderful long conversation with my graphics person, and we are working on having her price these little guys because I know several of you have already questioned. And she and I, our creative brains get really in trouble when we talk. And so we actually talked on Sunday, which is dangerous because neither one of us had parameters over when we needed to meet with our next person. But so I'll get, hopefully she's on that. So we'll get some of that information. Like I said, it is the re-envisioning of this program or programs is happening rather quickly. I am one of those people where I have to sit with things or meditate about things before I see a clear vision, and it's filling in very nicely, but I know it's going to be a lot of work for me with how it's coming together, but I feel like it's really good. So I'm going to probably, if we have a little time, I can present a little bit of that to you next week. Either way, I need to get some stuff down on paper and really kind of look at calendar and all that, but the vision is coming together. So that's a good thing I'm Sagittarius and can pivot. It's part of a Sagittarian's mindset is to pivot. So, all right. Any thoughts, questions, anything else? Okay. So, anybody know that they want to present next week?
I should have 2 by next week.
Okay.
Like for sure 2, but hopefully more.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm a maybe too. I'll see what I can get done. I'll let you know. I'll let you know before class though.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Krista, I put you down. Perfect. Okay. But you, Eleanor, are you anywhere? And that's okay if you're not ready, but
I'm not probably going to be in class next week, but I'll be ready with 2 or 3 the following week.
okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know, I know Mara was ready, but whatever happened, I just kind of sent her light and love and hopefully everything's okay. So we should have enough. I just want to make sure we get through everybody before, technically we only have, I think, 5 more classes left. So I want to make sure we get through them all. Perfect. Okay. Have a wonderful day or rest of your day. We're getting done 16 minutes early. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy. And I will look forward to seeing you next week. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.